Adam, Elliot, welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
Hi Mark. Cheers, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to be here.
No, I'm really excited to be speaking with both of you. How are you both getting on?
Good.
All good. Just taking each week as it comes, and there's not exactly huge differences per week other than the things that crop up at work. Obviously, everything else is pretty monotonous at the moment for quite a long period of time, but yeah, all fine.
Yeah. And you, Elliot?
Yeah, similar. Obviously, currently in our third lockdown, I guess it's almost business as usual. You've kind of adjusted to it now, and it's become normal. But certainly looking forward to the days when things can get back to normal for sure.
Yeah, I think we all are, aren't we? I'll just ask both of you just to very briefly say your name and your role so that listeners know who is who when we're going through the conversation, if that's okay.
Sure. I'm Adam Rossiter, joint founder and CEO of Bulk.
And I'm Elliot Dawes, also co-founder and chief growth officer of Bulk. Great.
Cheers, lads. Well, I'm excited to get into this. I've been aware of the business for a long time, and you've been busy boys. You've been up to a lot recently. So I think to start with, let's talk a little bit about today. You've made mass changes in the business recently, including completely rebranding and making a big move to being far more sustainable. So it'd just be really good to hear how the last sort of 3 or 4 months have been for both of you as individuals and then for the business itself as well.
Do you want to
go? Yeah. So, I mean, this rebrand we've just undergone. So to give a little bit of background, our name used to be Bulk Powders, and we've recently transitioned to just Bulk. And although that doesn't sound like a big change, it really, really is. The amount of kind of points across the business that impacts both kind of internally, externally is just huge. And it literally, it's been an 18-month project in terms of kicking off from design through to delivery. But the whole idea of sort of changing our name actually was born probably around about 2 years ago, when we first acquired the bulk.com domain, sorry. So I guess maybe to give a little bit of background, we started in 2006 very much as a hardcore bodybuilding brand. And when we launched them, we were very much no frills packaging. We were just selling single ingredients. And then over time, we transitioned more to sports nutrition and active nutrition. And I think we felt that with the name Bulk Powders, there's probably a little bit of a ceiling as to where that name brand could potentially take us. So, I mean, we'd had conversations throughout the years about changing the name because we were never, in all honesty, really particularly happy with it. It served a great purpose in the early years because there were a lot of people searching for bulk powders, but it sort of confined us to this niche, and obviously we wanted to build something much bigger. So I mean, like I said, we talked in the past about changing the name, but we always felt we were too big to change the name, and then we kind of look back on it now and think that was a bit of a silly decision almost. We should have acted much sooner. It reached the point where a couple of years ago we thought that if we're going to change it, we'll change it now. So we bought the domain and then kicked off this project to rebrand the whole business. And I guess the idea behind it is to make us a more mainstream brand. I think obviously these days people are far more switched on to the importance of nutrition, and there's just generally a much greater awareness of it. So it's kind of capitalizing on that trend, and at the same time moving the brand to be something that isn't just a commodity that might just, someone might buy a protein shake and it just sits in the back of the cupboard. We want to be, we want the brand to be a premium brand that looks great and is an integral part of someone's lifestyle and sits on the kitchen counter as opposed to just stored away in the back of the cupboard. That's been the challenge with this, and it's meant a whole new brand identity. It really has touched every part of the business, and I think one of the biggest challenges has been trying to retain our DNA from Bulk Powders in terms of us being a kind of sports and active nutrition brand, but at the same time now being able to transition to this more lifestyle and mainstream brand where we can bring in a whole new swathe of customers. So that's been the challenge. And I mean, we only launched 4 weeks ago, so it's still very early days, but I think the reception so far has been great. And yeah, we believe this is kind of the start of a new journey almost. So even though we've been doing this for 14 years, we do feel like it's taken us almost back to day one, and we've now got this whole new platform to build upon.
No, it's so interesting. It's fascinating. I spoke with Spencer Matthews, who's, I don't know whether you've seen any of the stuff he's doing recently, but he's got a clean liquor company, which was originally called Clean Liquor, and they changed it to Clean Co because it's so impactful, the name and what it says, and they want to expand outside of just being liquor and spirit company. Similar to you guys, you don't want to be perceived as just providing protein powders. So it's interesting.
And we weren't. When we launched the business, we were both still studying, and we didn't have the foresight or vision to think about what it could be in the future. We almost did it not as a hobby because we took it incredibly seriously, but we weren't thinking 10, 15, 20 years ahead about what might be. We were just taking advantage of an opportunity and really not thinking that far ahead.
And the more we got down the line, the more we wanted to do things differently. We don't really and haven't really aspired to anyone else in the industry that we're in and thought we want to be more like them or we want to do things in the way they're doing them. We obviously aspire to being larger and overall a bigger brand, but we aspire to the best brands out there in the world. And so we felt like Bulk Powders was a brand name that probably couldn't set us apart in the right way. And we wanted to go on our own journey from the point of rebranding to Bulk with our own look and feel, our own way of talking to customers and really tying it back to our vision, which is change nutrition, change the game, change attitudes, change lives. And we can't really change the game and change attitudes towards nutrition if we just look the same and feel the same as everyone else who's in our industry. So we wanted to go out on our own 2 feet in a really big way that hopefully customers and consumers out there really appreciate and really get on board with.
Amazing. And let's for a second talk about numbers, shall we? Because we were talking just before we hit record, Adam, that this year you're forecasted to hit 100 million turnover.
So over 100 million. So this is our milestone year, hopefully, all going well with our strategy and no kind of enormous curveballs coming from the pandemic and whatnot. But we expect to break the £100 million annual revenue barrier.
Wow. So talk to me a little bit, both of you, if you can. How does that feel to say something like this? Again, you were just talking about being at university, and I'd love to go back in time in a moment and hear how it all began in that conversation. But not even thinking 10, 15, 20 years in the future, but now being in a position where you're very close to reaching 100 million turnover. Like, how does that feel?
I think we don't tend to stop and take stock of things very much. I mean, I guess you could argue if there's one time that we perhaps have done it a tiny bit more, it would be this, but not really. I mean, we're so driven and so ambitious and motivated that it's just another tick in the box to us. It really is, and we have to do better at celebrating for the team and all of the whole team Bulk around us and everything that they're achieving alongside us, obviously. But for ourselves personally, we're not going to stop and have a massive party when we hit 100 million, because it's just another step in a journey that we feel like we can keep growing, keep doing what we're doing, keep expanding into markets, keep winning the hearts and minds of consumers to want to shop with Bulk and be a part of the brand. And it's great when we talk about it, but I'd say we really, I personally don't stop and think about it in any particularly meaningful way. It's just another step in the journey towards being even better and even bigger.
Yeah, similar for me. I think Adam's right completely that we don't do a good enough job of celebrating. We should be really celebrating milestones like this. And I guess once we hit it, we probably will. But I think Adam was talking about our vision just a minute ago, and our mission statement is actually to become the world's largest sports active nutrition brand. So to get there, we've got to be approaching, well, the target for us is approaching $1 billion revenue. So 100 million is a great place to be, but I think it shows how much further we have to go to deliver on that mission. And it's a mission that we're, I wouldn't say sort of arrogantly confident with, but I think we have everything kind of in place to get there. We don't necessarily know how long that will take, but we're committed to that journey now, and we do see this as just a start really now.
And I think you can, if you stop and think about achievements too much, you can lose sight of your purpose and what you're driven to do, and you can start thinking, the business might be worth this, or we're making this amount of profit, or we could be in 2 years we could be this size. And actually, if you're motivated purely by that, then you're probably in this for the wrong reason, and you're probably not going to get the best out of yourself or out of anyone around you. So yeah, these are great milestones, and we're very proud of them when we stop and are asked about them by someone like yourself, Mark. But other than that, we stay focused around what we're trying to achieve, which is just to keep plowing on.
Such a fantastic mindset. It's funny, I have recently hit the 100th episode with Eddie Hearn, and a lot of people ask me about that, like, how was that? What was it like hitting the 100th episode? Thank you. And I said the same thing. I said it actually just feels like the beginning. It's a really strange sensation that when you get to something like it does feel like the beginning, and it actually just adds fuel to the fire to keep going. And it sounds like you guys think the same thing.
Very much.
Yeah,
I think if you're kind of entrepreneurial in the way you behave and how you're minded, then yeah, you're always just looking at what's the next thing. Like, I'm 100 now, how do I get to 1,000? And yeah, I think you're always looking forward rather than backwards.
Yeah,
and I think a big part of why Elliot and I have done so well together as a business partnership over the years, because we've both got the same work ethic, the same passion, the same drive, the same ambition. And if that had sort of been at odds to each other years ago or at any point, then you would just not be aligned on everything that you're trying to do. But we very much share that same belief and just that same drive. So I think that's been a big part of our success together as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Do you guys have a goal setting regime that you sit down together and carry out, or how does that vision get built by you both?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we work with our whole senior leadership team, so the board that we have around us. And we've got a great team. And I guess that's where we discuss the strategic direction of the business and the sort of day-to-day things we're trying to achieve and the goals each year. And I guess for us personally, we probably share them with each other, Elliot and I, a little bit more to ourselves, because that's, I guess, as the main shareholders in the business, then our future is something that we need to look at in a slightly different way, but it's typically aligned with what we're doing with the business, which is just we want to keep growing, keep achieving, become a bigger brand, and that's what everyone in the business and the brand wants to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, I'd love to hear how it all began. Right, when I went to university, I played for the university football team. I went out every night pretty much. I did very little work, but you guys, by the sounds of it, from our research, you built a business. So could you take us back to the day when you had that conversation, and where were you even at university? Like, how did you meet one another, and how did it lead to ultimately taking a leap of faith into creating a business?
I think.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, we both really enjoyed university, and we did all those things that you did. We spent most of our life in the gym. Maybe not in sort of our first couple of years, but certainly our third year onwards, we spent literally every day, if not twice a day, sometimes in the gym, and that was our kind of common connection and goal. And I guess what got us really motivated to enter this kind of sector as such. I mean, we were both naturally very slim, and we both wanted to get bigger. And obviously we wanted to look better and have more muscle and all those things. And I think we saw the impact that the gym had on us, like mentally and physically. And I guess more importantly, the products we were using to help us get there. I think we both quickly realized that, going to the gym is one thing, but nutrition is actually the bigger part and is the bigger challenge. So I think we were both at uni. I think by the time we launched the business, I'd actually just graduated, and I'd gone on to law school. Adam was in his final year. But I think we sort of talked about this and thought about it, and there wasn't kind of one moment where it really happened. I mean, the best recollection I have personally is we were kind of on a summer break between years. And Adam and I both used to buy our supplements from the US already on like a personal basis. So we used to just buy, pre-workouts and protein powders, and we'd import them from US websites because there was a lot of products you couldn't get in the UK, and if you wanted them, you had to go to the US. And I think being a student, I was looking around for the best possible price, and vaguely remember coming across like a wholesale company who, the prices looked great. They were much cheaper than we were paying, but obviously they wouldn't sell to me because I wasn't a trading business. And I think that maybe sparked an idea, and somehow from there, I think we talked about it, and before we knew it, we'd put the wheels in motion to start this business. So Bulk itself, just to give a little bit more context, Bulk itself wasn't actually founded until a couple of years later. We actually started selling other brands because that was a much easier way into the market. So we started reaching out to various US brands saying, your products aren't available in the UK. Can we bring them over? And, we've got a nice website and we'll market them, etc. And we found that these smaller US brands were quite keen to work with us. Even though we had no kind of credibility or background, we managed to convince them somehow to supply us. So that was essentially how it started, really. And I mean, we were quite fortunate that Adam's brother was a web developer, so he built us a website at a very reasonable price. I think Adam said it was £500 we paid him.
It was nice. I think it was actually about 200, but
yeah,
we definitely did deal.
So yeah, certainly a bargain. And yeah, so over the course of that kind of summer holiday, we set up a supply chain, if you want to call it that. We certainly didn't phrase it like that at the time, but we found suppliers. We had a website built. I think the biggest stumbling block was cash. Obviously, being students, we didn't really, we had our student loans, but that was generally spent within a week of receiving it. We didn't have assets. We were basically in debt. So I think we did approach the bank, and they weren't particularly keen on the idea. And I think at the time in particular, obviously now supplements in general are more accepted. At the time, if you went into a bank telling people you were going to be selling protein shakes and creatine, etc., there was a bit of a stigma almost. So we didn't really get the bank support I guess we were hoping for. Maybe we were being slightly optimistic, but I mean, luckily between our parents we managed to get £3,000 on a credit card, and that funded our kind of first purchase of stock. And yeah, so we bought over that initial amount of stock, put it on the website. I don't think we truly had a plan as to how we were going to sell it. I think we were probably, I'm sure Adam would agree, probably a little bit naive. We just expected it to sell. And we had no idea about Google, paid search, any of these channels whatsoever. The only thing we really did know about was that we were both members of kind of bodybuilding forums, which back then were, I guess, an early form of social media, really. So we would post on bodybuilding forums, and that's basically how we acquired our first few customers, was through those channels. And from then on, it was just about offering, we were very much selling on price. So number one, there was scarcity of product. We were the only place you could buy it. Number two, the prices were far, far cheaper than sort of other prices you were paying within the UK. And then on top of that, we offered just an incredible level of customer service. I mean, if someone contacted us with an inquiry about a product, we would literally be replying to them within like 30 seconds to a minute. I mean, we were just on it, because every sale was just so crucial to us.
We had to make the most of what we could do. And if we didn't have loads of cash for advertising, what we could do was literally what we had the manpower and the passion and energy to do ourselves. So yeah, getting orders shipped as quickly as possible, replying to customers as quickly and as significantly as possible, giving them the best information we could, and just being on those bodybuilding forums pre-social media, and making sure we were talked about, making sure we were sort of plugging ourselves by not directly, but just responding to people's questions. As we got more and more knowledgeable about training and nutrition, then obviously we tried to leverage that as well. We talked about celebration before and the fact we don't really do it, but I do remember we definitely celebrated our first order, and I'm pretty sure we celebrated our first £1,000 day. I think they're probably a couple of the celebrations I do remember, because I mean, back in the day we used to track in a way that was very manual, but we used to track everyone through the site. We would watch users as they were moving from page to page. Then we'd sort of see they're on their basket, and Elliot, we were in working from home at times, didn't have an office, so we would, Elliot would shout out, "Oh, there's someone on the basket page." We'd both be looking at it, and we'd see if they're right. They're on the checkout. Are they going to buy? And then obviously sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. And that was a really exciting time for us, because this was, we didn't set out with any particular expectation. It was just amazing for us to see that people were on our website looking at stuff that we had decided to sell and price and whatnot, and we're actually going through and making a transaction with us. This was obviously a really exciting time and just something completely new.
Incredibly courageous. What's coming up for me, lads, as I'm listening to the story is actually what's behind that. Because like you guys, me and all my mates, we went to the gym all the time at uni. We loved it. We invested in protein powder and all this stuff, but never once did I consider setting up a wholesaler to import products from another country and start selling it to people. So what was it that separated you from people who wouldn't do that? What was it that actually made you guys take the action and create something? Had you had experience in the past, or mentors or people who had inspired you to want to do something like this, or was it your courses? What were you studying at the time as well?
This is a tough one. I don't think it was any of those things necessarily. I mean, me personally, I was doing a computer science degree. I wouldn't say I was absolutely loving it. I've always been very interested in tech and computers and very good with everything to do with computers, but I didn't want to become a developer, and that was basically the course that I signed up for. So in terms of working hard, not sure. Definitely went out a lot, definitely trained at the gym a lot, and definitely enjoyed the whole experience of uni. But maybe part of it for me was just looking for some purpose, and my course wasn't that. I mean, I wasn't actively seeking out a purpose, but maybe the fact that I was really enjoying getting into the gym, and we saw this potential opportunity that, yeah, it just came from that. But neither of us had any business experience. Neither of us have anyone in our families that have started and got successful businesses or anything like it at all. So we had no experience with business, no experience with setting up business. We learned everything on our feet and made mistakes and just improved and learned more and more as we went along. I think we both absorbed things and learned very quickly. So we did have to learn everything, and there were a lot of things that we had absolutely no idea about. But yeah, I wouldn't say we were actually looking for this to happen, and I'm not really sure how it did transition from just a discussion into something that we took from day one, and we genuinely did incredibly seriously. No plan, no discussions around exit and anything like that. I mean, we were obviously a million miles away from having a clue what any of those words were even about at that point, but we took it, 150% effort and seriousness right from day one, just because we wanted to. I think.
Yeah, I think Adam's covered it completely. I mean, I think we're both quite naturally curious. So getting into the gym, like I say, we were using a lot of products, and we were always very curious about the ingredients in them, and we were always kind of looking at them and comparing different products, and wondering whether this product might be slightly better than that one and why. And I think kind of that curiosity, and combined with our passion for the gym, because it probably was our biggest interest was going to the gym. So I guess we wanted to make a career out of that is well, perfect, isn't it? They always say you should do something you love, and we loved going to the gym. So I guess it enabled us to make it into a career. I mean, I did law at university. I never particularly wanted to be a solicitor, for example. I mean, I went all the way with my studies and qualified, but I was never passionate about it. But I was passionate about the gym and nutrition, and I've got a sporting background and so on. And yeah, I think all those things combined obviously just led us to where we were. And then, like I said, there was no magic moment where we thought this is it. It was just kind of an informal conversation, and it almost just snowballed, and we ran away with it, and here we are today.
Yeah, I think, when I was going through school, you have a careers advisor, and you talk about what you maybe want to do, and that potentially dictates which course you may end up doing at university. And I always really struggled with that, because I didn't have a particular profession that I wanted to go into that would mean that I would do law or do medicine or whatever it might be. I mean, I do know that starting a business was one of the things that I liked the idea of, but then there was joining MI5 and being a fighter pilot as well. And I think the reality was those things probably weren't going to happen. And when I got to uni, I guess my expectation was to hopefully get a good degree and just to have a sort of inverted commas good city job. That was as far as I really got at that point. So I'm not sure how appealing that necessarily was, and it wasn't exactly a particularly rock solid plan either. So this was probably an alternative that suddenly thought, this is something worth doing, but certainly never with an expectation, never with a plan of this will be a career. It just was what it was each day, and we took each day as it came, and we loved doing it, so we kept doing it, and that's been 15 years now.
Wow.
And that's pretty much how it's been, I would say.
That's great. It's funny. I speak to so many entrepreneurs, and it's people who have these ideas, who want to follow through on them, or at least try to take action on them. They have so many fears around, I don't know how to set up a company's house or find a domain name, or even some of these most basic things. But you never know until you do know. You just go and figure it out. I wonder where your guys' self-belief came from, because I think that's really, really important, especially in the early days. Do Have you thought about that before?
I think, we're both pretty confident in our own abilities with things, and I think we're probably naturally that way. And yeah, we had to find out everything. I guess we like challenges as well. I think that's both in our nature to, if there is a problem or something to solve, right, I can solve that. If it's how do you set up a company, to how do you do a VAT return, to how do we source products, how do we get a courier contract set up, how do we build a website, how do we do marketing now, all these different things were just challenges. And it's like, well, we want to learn. I think we're both keen to absorb information and learn about what we're doing. And yeah, I'd say that obviously helped us in a pretty big way.
At what point did you go from being a wholesaler to creating your own products?
So we never actually wholesaled, but buying from a wholesaler in terms of then retailing someone else's products was from day one. It's about 2 years in. So about 2 years in, we, I guess, switched on to the fact that we can make much better margins, and it's nice to have our own brand. I mean, let's be honest, what we call a brand now was very different to what we called the brand back then. I mean, it was a brand. A lot of all the other proper brands, if you like, did not even consider us to be a brand, even though we were just considered to be, ironically given the name, but a category of bulk sellers, like people that sold bulk products, and we just happened to be called bulk powders as well. But we weren't really taken seriously by the industry. Consumers obviously did, and over time, more and more liked what we were doing. But yeah, I think starting our own brand and being in control even more of what we were doing was a place we liked to be.
Elliot, anything more on that?
No, not particularly. I think we noticed probably wasn't a conscious decision. Or I mean, now there's, everybody talks about direct consumer, and we are direct consumer, and we started bulk or powders as it was known then in 2006, and we started it with a direct consumer model. And I don't think that was necessarily that we were kind of visionary almost, but I think it just happened. And I don't think we sat there thinking, right, direct consumer is the future. We just felt that was the best way for us to get our products to customers, because, well, partly, as Adam said, we didn't have the strength of brand where people like Holland and Barrett and Tesco and Sainsbury's would be biting our arms off to stock it anyway. So actually our only outlet was to do it all ourselves and get it straight in customers' hands. So I think we kind of, jumped on that in 2006. And I think the other challenge was that selling other people's products, you're always at the mercy of that brand and the brand owner. If they decide they're not going to supply you, or they're raising your prices, or you're at any kind of commercial disadvantage versus other people selling those products, then your business is over. And I guess you have Amazon coming through at the time, and Amazon have now, well, who were our competitors at the time selling other brands, none of those guys are really in business because Amazon have just swallowed them.
Wow.
So the fact we kind of pivoted and launched our own brand obviously has turned out to be completely the right thing to do. And you're completely in control of the brand. Margins are better because you own kind of the whole supply chain as well. And that was a big thing we did. We launched, I mean, we call it manufacturing, but we made all our products in-house from day one. And in 2006, that was as simple as a big yellow self-storage unit, a stainless steel table, some scales, and some metal scoops. And our first delivery from a supplier was a pallet of whey protein. It used to come in like 20 kilo sacks. You get 40 on a pallet, so you have 800 kilos of protein sitting there. And we were selling it in kind of like 5 kilogram tubs. And it was literally as simple as put the tub on the scales, add 5 kilos of powder, stick on this tiny, horrendous looking inkjet label, and sell it to consumers. And people were buying this because they knew the quality was there and the price was just unlike anything else on the market. So that was really kind of our niche. And we never had this vision of taking it into like an active lifestyle mainstream nutrition brand, but that's where we started. And I guess along the way we've kind of capitalized on opportunities that have presented themselves ever since.
And I think a big part of it as well is being masters of our own destiny. I mean, right from day one, we loved being in control of what we were in control of and what we were doing. But then, as Elliot said, when you're selling someone else's brand, you're also at the mercy of the success and appeal of that brand. We can't make that brand desirable. That's for the brand owners to do. We're just a retailer trying to tag along with it as such. Whereas when we become our own brand, we're completely in control. We succeed or we fail on the decisions we make and the learnings that we have and how we behave with our consumers. And I think that's a trend that we really liked and something that we've continued for years. And it's definitely a piece of advice that I would give, that if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you're driven, if you're confident in what you're doing and you believe in it and you're prepared to put the work in, get as much under your control as you can. And that means bringing everything in-house. So having your own brand, your own manufacturing, all areas of marketing in-house. It doesn't have to be massive teams from the start. I mean, we just obviously had initially just one person doing any particular role, but having it all under one roof not only meant that everyone was joined together on one common goal, but also who we hire and how they perform and the decisions that we take in those areas are completely on us. So if we're prepared to put the work in and we believe that our decisions are going to be good and we can shape the direction of the brand, then it's all within our control to either succeed or not. Whereas if we're working with different agencies, different brands, there's so much unknown out there that a lot of your success is dictated by other people's success in what they're doing. And we actually prefer to kind of put our eggs in one basket and back ourselves.
That's brilliant. Just as you're saying that, I recently read this. I don't know if you've read The Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger.
No, I haven't, no.
He was the CEO of Disney for 15 years, and he spoke about a pivotal moment within the business where they were trying to be acquired. And, they're one of the few companies that have managed to keep control of everything, and it just changed everything. It led to the Pixar acquisition, the Marvel acquisition, and the Lucasfilms acquisition, which has now made them one of the biggest companies in the world. So it's interesting. You're talking about.
I've actually seen his story on Masterclass. I think he's on the Masterclass app, and he tells his story on there and gives it his advice on pivoting and taking new directions. So yeah, he was an interesting guy.
Yeah, really interesting. So what advice would you give to people who are hoping to create a business, direct to consumer or otherwise, or maybe who are considering but feeling fearful about going on a venture themselves?
I think it's easy for us to give advice on one hand, but I think we also recognise the fact that there are a lot of areas where we were quite lucky. Number one, being students, we didn't have a lot to lose. So, we didn't have mortgages, we didn't have families to support, and all those things that are obviously incredibly important. So our circumstances kind of enabled us to just, go with very little downside risk. And then equally having our parents there to just give us that, albeit a small amount in the scheme of things, just give us that startup capital. And a lot of people aren't in that position. So I think we recognise, there's been a few things that have kind of worked in our favour. But just general advice would be that, I think first and foremost, it's got to be something you're passionate about. And I know that's what most people give as this answer, but I think I truly believe that because, I think that's what we've done. We were passionate about the gym and we've built a business around it. So that would be the main thing. And then I think research is a massive part of it too. I think you've got to really, really know your area. And I think that's where Adam and I are quite strong as well. We spent a lot of time researching whether it was the best couriers to use, which products we should stock and why people should buy them, how to write copy that sells product, all those things. So I think that's really important. But particularly in e-commerce, there are still so many opportunities out there. And particularly, I guess, when we started in 2006, e-commerce, it was developed, but it's nothing like it is today. Today, so the adoption rates of online shopping are so much higher. You've got social media and paid search, which obviously can be incredible channels for acquiring customers. And we didn't really have those. And if we did, they were in a much kind of less developed format. So I think, it's easier to start an e-commerce business today than it was back then. But equally, because it's easier, you've got more competition. So yeah, that would be my kind of general advice. And I think alongside it, you need a business model that works. You have to make sure the economics are going to stack up. So you need to know kind of what your margin is on your products you're selling, and then how that translates to how much it's going to cost you to acquire each customer, and what your delivery costs are, what your overheads are. And if you can't get all of those things to stack up, then you fundamentally don't have a business that stands on its own two feet, and you'll either have to constantly be raising investment, which is fine on one hand, but equally it can be a big distraction too. So yeah, that would be my advice.
And you can't get everything right from day one. I think having the right business model, I would say, is believing significantly that you can get the right business model. So from day one, you're not going to be able to leverage the best prices on things. You're not going to have access to certain suppliers or certain services because you just aren't, you don't have the volume. But you've got to believe that the underlying business model with some scale will get there, and believe that you can take it there. So I think most businesses don't start off with perfect economics, but the key is that the underlying model at the right point will work. If you're heading on a scaling exercise as you get bigger where it's not going to work, nothing improves, and things are still going to be more and more challenging, then that's probably a tough model to make work for the long term. So you need to kind of give that thought as to where it can get to in the future, even though today you can't realistically expect yourself to be able to be there.
What does that model look like, Adam? Is that model essentially a model which involves playing to your strengths in the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got to recognize what you can and can't achieve each day, month, year, and just do the best you can in each area. And I think, like Elliot said, research and knowledge is so key. If you don't have the knowledge of a particular area, whatever it might be, then the chance of you being able to make a good or the best decision is pretty slim. And if you're striving to be the best at something, particularly when you're starting a business, you are inferior to everyone else in that you're unknown, you're tiny, you've got all the work to do to convince people to use your service, your products, your brand, whatever it is, you've got all the work to do basically. And so you've got to convince people to be that. So yeah, you need to know everything that's going on in your area in a way that the bigger players perhaps don't have the time to do, because they're focused on other things at that point. And perhaps, just maybe, and you see this quite a bit, they take the eye off the ball a little bit, and then someone hungry, new, coming in with a business idea actually has got all the passion, all the drive to kind of really take a look at what's going on in certain areas and perhaps make some better decisions. And that's where you see people being disruptive, because suddenly you get the big players thinking, oh wow, like never saw that coming or didn't have that idea, because they're not in the same mindset as someone who is just starting out and is really hungry to do something and is thinking outside the box and perhaps comes up with an idea or a way of executing something that really does take the market by storm. And obviously you see loads of disruptors in the world, and that's great. That allows things to move on, and ultimately the consumer gets better.
Yeah, they have a fresh perspective. Yeah, really interesting. They've got a fresh perspective on it.
Yeah.
Lads, something I wanted to bring up here, which, Adam, you called it purpose, Elliot, you said passion. If you guys talked about what that was when you first started and how that's potentially changed today, or is it the same, your purpose for doing it and the things that make you feel passionate about it?
I think, I'd say you probably move through different cycles and it kind of ebbs and flows of how passionate you are. But I think for us, first we got the rebrand, which I guess is not that we lost our passion at any stage over the last 14 years, but it's kind of given us like a rebirth almost. We just feel almost more passionate about the brand than ever. So I think you probably need things along your journey like that can kind of continue to fuel it. And then just in a more general sense, I think Adam and I talk about this quite a bit, but I think because we've got a business that's growing fast, and it depends what you call fast growth. We'd still consider ourselves fast growth at kind of 30 to 40% year on year. There are obviously businesses out there growing much faster. Obviously, as you get bigger, that gets harder. But I think because we've got a business that is growing at that amount, which means if we grow at that rate for the next 7 or 8 years, we're at 1 billion revenue. That makes it really exciting. If we were running a business that was only growing, a couple of percent per year, that would not be exciting, because if you're only growing at a couple of percent, well, you're probably not doing much new. You're probably not entering new markets. You're probably not launching new products, and it just generally wouldn't be exciting. But because we are growing fast and we're looking at new markets and we're constantly launching new products and we're always looking at what's your next opportunity, that makes this an exciting business and means we can remain passionate.
Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't, obviously with doing my research, I did know, but I didn't realize beforehand that you'd been going for 15 years. And when I became aware of you was through the fantastic campaign that you did with Anthony Joshua. So it'd be nice to hear how that came about and who had the conversation and how you pitched to his team. But also any other sort of tipping points, and whether that was even one of your tipping points. Were there any sort of standout tipping points along the last 15 years that got you to the kind of level of growth that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, signing AJ was definitely a big thing for us. I mean, having someone who is one of the top athletes in the country, in the world, and having him exclusively signed to our brand, using our products to better himself and to endorse that was a really big thing for us. And yeah, it wasn't an easy win as such. I mean, there are other brands obviously wanting to appeal to him in the same way, and his team were obviously on the lookout for the brands that they believed in and that would represent them, because it works both ways with an endorsement. I mean, you want to work with a partnership, or it is a partnership, and you want to make sure that the partner you work with represents themselves in the right way, and that goes for the brand and the athlete. So yeah, it was a big signing for us, and it really, I think, elevated us in terms of the credibility, and then also the amount of people who then want to work with us or have heard of us as a result of Anthony Joshua is enormous, and it does really lift you up from whatever position that you've been in prior to that. And I guess in terms of other tipping points, I mean, one big driver for us was a number of years back when a competitor sold for a really significant amount of money. And we always say that we took the business incredibly seriously every day, every week with what we were doing, but we didn't ever make a sort of a step change in trying to run it in a more corporate, if that's the right word, kind of, not exactly, but a slightly more corporate, more grown-up way, let's say. Yeah. So the way that bigger businesses operate in a bit of a more formal way. And that trigger point of seeing a very substantial amount of money that we had never considered, we had not had one conversation up until that point about what the business might be worth or anything like that. It just wasn't on our radar. We were not doing it for an exit fee or for any kind of plan like that. We were doing it because we loved it and we loved what we were building and we were growing, and that was exciting, and that was it. That's all we needed. But at that point, we saw that had happened, and we thought, wow, not only do we love doing this, it's growing really well, it's working for us, etc. But actually, this could and is worth an enormous amount of money, and if we keep going at the rate we're going, then we could be on for something even more incredible than we realized here. And that has never changed our motivation for doing it. We've never chased pound notes, hence why we've never sold any part of the business. We still own all of the business. We've never had any investment. We've never taken any money off the table, because that hasn't been what's motivated us. And we like owning and being masters of our own destiny, as I said. But I'd say that was a bit of a tipping point in that drove us to hire a senior management team to look at business in a more grown-up way, to try and learn. I mean, we'd had no mentors, no outside help, absolutely nothing until this point whatsoever, and we still really barely have that. But we took on a chairman, and that's, I guess, was the first step in having someone with experience for putting the right structure in place for a business, and understanding things like budgets and how a board should work, and some of the more formalities that we had no idea about, and we were just doing whatever we thought was right, and decisions were incredibly simple. It was a conversation between myself and Elliot. We'd agree on what to do, and boom, next day we'd be doing it. So, really easy. But obviously, as you grow up as a business, you bring in more expertise that is better than you in their respective areas, and they add value, and you work together, and then you grow even more. And certainly that's where we saw our growth increase in a greater way, by hiring great people and really starting to delegate what we can do and expand as a business.
And that happened, I mean, that tipping point Adam refers to was around about 2011. So we launched Bulk in 2006. And those 5 years, I think, like Adam said, we took it incredibly seriously, but we were, I guess, laying the foundations for the business. And we were fighting cash flow issues every day, because when we started with this £3,000 and we didn't have any more money than that, we had to trade our way up day by day by day. And it was a real challenge. So we were kind of laying the foundations during those first 5 years. And on the cash flow side, again, that was why, I mean, we didn't take on our first employee till 2011. So Adam and I were doing everything until that point. We would pack every single customer order. We were manufacturing stock. We were doing email campaigns, VAT returns. We did absolutely everything. So we knew how to do completely every job within the business. And then, yeah, as Adam said, we saw what happened in 2011. It kind of sparked something, and we thought, right, let's start bringing people in. So it started with just, someone as simple as bringing someone in for the warehouse to help pack boxes, then someone to help manufacture stock, then someone to reply to emails, and then someone to maybe run the finance department. And it just escalated. I think we realized as we were bringing people in, we were starting to see things move faster and faster. So 2011, we were doing about $1 million in revenue on bulk. So we've gone from $1 million to 100 million in 10 years. And I think, yeah, as Adam said, that's when 2011 is when we really, I guess, professionalized the business. Prior to that, we were taking it incredibly seriously, but I think we see it as the period where we were laying the foundations, and 2011 is when we enable things to start to really grow.
Wow. What have you learned about recruitment on your journey that you can advise other businesses?
I'd say we've learned that people is the most important area of the business. That is with absolute certainty, but it is also the most difficult aspect of the business. Hiring the right people, motivating the right people, getting them collaborating in the right way across the business, keeping them happy. Everyone has their own needs. I'd say that's the biggest thing. You can't treat everyone in exactly the same way in terms of speaking to them and managing them in the same way and believing that they all like the same thing, don't like the same thing, are turned on or off by the same things, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to really adapt to how you manage people, and that still learning that. To be honest, is I think all these things you continue learning forever, but certainly that's been a tough learning curve, and it's hard because you always want to do the right thing and you always set out to do the right thing, and so do all of your employees, but you just don't always meet in the same place in terms of what you believe is right or how you believe something should be done. And it's tough, but getting people right and having the right culture and the right engagement around your team and having the right talent that really can do amazing things is absolutely incredibly important. You're not going to get anywhere fast or great without a great team around you.
Yeah, completely. And I think we've got it a little bit easier now. The bigger you get, almost the people side is still the most important thing of any business, also the most challenging. But I think as we're a bigger business, we have it personally a little bit easier, because when you first start hiring people, if they're not performing, you've got to have that conversation. Reviews, all those things, everyone who's coming into the business, you've got to have all those difficult conversations. Whereas as you get bigger and you can build a people team who can cover off those areas for you, it does get slightly easier, and you can really start to build a culture, which is something we've actively been trying to work on, and something we neglected for a long time, but I think something we're actively working on, and is a continually evolving beast, essentially.
Really, really interesting. I wanted to ask about culture actually. How have you? When did you start thinking about it first and foremost, and then how have you started to create a bit of a culture within bulk?
I say it's probably only been a few years ago that it really became a subject that not that we knowingly neglected it. It just wasn't something we had any experience with. It wasn't something that was on our radar, and it should have been. That's one of our mistakes, if you like. But we opened a London office, and suddenly there was a much bigger expectation on us as leaders of the business, on everything from benefits to communication to the way people interact, and ultimately you wrap all that up, and that's your culture. And it kind of hit us quite hard in that this is something we haven't really figured out, or we haven't defined even, as to what do we want the culture to be, what are our company or brand values and our people values, and how do we want to tie that into how we hire people and how we motivate people and how we sort of bonus people even, and things like that. So yeah, when we opened the London office sort of around 3 years back, it really became the point that we were almost, again, slightly thrust into the deep end of right now there's a much bigger expectation. We've got to address this, and we haven't got it right all the time along the way, but we've certainly put more and more focus into trying to ascertain, right, what steps do we need to take and which areas are we slightly weaker in. But ultimately, that's such a big thing for businesses these days. And again, we need to appeal to great talent. And down the road, we've got Facebook, Google, Snapchat, whoever. We've got all these other huge, great companies that look fantastic on your CV, and they're offering incredible benefits and different cultures. Some are very outspoken in how their cultures are, and some are a little bit less so. But we've got to appeal to that in a bigger way beyond just a salary, because that's not the way we want to appeal to people. So we want to be, and we hopefully are seen as a great brand that's great to work for because of the growth, but also somewhere I think you can leave your mark. And we do want people to come into the brand with great talent who are ambitious and can leave a mark in the way that in much bigger organizations you probably get slightly more lost. But people want to have fun, they want to enjoy what they're doing, they want to feel motivated, and we have to wrap all of this up. You can't ignore any of it, or it's in someone's mind that they're just lacking this particular thing, whatever it is, even if you're giving them 8 out of 10 of the rest of it. And people these days are quite expectant about when they come into a business, they want it all. And I don't blame them, because it's a huge part of your life. You know, you spend an enormous amount of every week working for a brand or a business. You want to love what you're doing, and you want to feel appreciated, and you want to keep doing that.
I suppose they, like, people who work for you, want to feel the purpose and passion that you have for it as well. And I guess the people who you bring into the business, and even the ambassadors, actually are going to have a huge impact on that too.
Yeah, joining everyone together into one common purpose, one common goal, and aligning everyone in understanding not just what that goal is, but why. What's the history? What's the journey? What are we all trying to achieve together? And then working together in the most synergistic way. That is the way most businesses can achieve fantastic success. And the ones that do that the best probably progress the quickest in whatever they're doing. And obviously, if you combine that with a good industry to be in, good decisions, good product, you're going to flourish as a business.
Are you guys still involved in the recruitment process today? Like, do you still do the interviews? And also, just to go back on the AJ, and I know you also have Katrina Johnson-Thompson as an ambassador as well, who's coming on the podcast thanks to your team, which I'm really looking forward to. Are you involved in those conversations? Like, did you have to sit down with AJ and Katrina's team as well in order to get that deal over the line?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I guess right from day one, we've never been afraid to get our hands dirty, and I think you can't be. Someone starting out to do a business, you know, we're happy to sweep the floor, manufacture the products, do the customer service emails. We always have been, but part of that passion has never left us, in that we love to be involved with what we're doing. And obviously, as you get much bigger, you can't be involved in the same depth or in the same way, and you have to let teams who own those areas do the majority of the work. But certainly hiring people and being part of the decisions at a more senior level, we take part in interviews, but importantly, setting the process and agreeing the process of how we hire people. So how do we look at culture? Do we have a culture board, for example, and things like that, and making sure that even if we're not involved in every interview across the business, which at our size is just not possible, we have to have a significant involvement in how that process is working to make sure we get the right people through the door. And I'm sure Elliot can follow on from this, but in a senior way, anything that is significantly important in the business, and that's definitely hiring the likes of AJ, KJT, all the big things, we're definitely involved with. We're not take a back seat, and we're not corporate in that way. We are get our hands dirty, get involved in the conversation, really stay involved, and that comes back to the one thing: passion.
Yeah, I haven't got a huge amount to add, to be fair. I think Adam's covered it off well. I think we're on the recruitment side, it's a slightly fine line, because obviously we have a board, and those guys are ultimately responsible for recruitment in their own areas, and yeah, it's a fine line between they need to be trusted to go off and recruit their own teams. So if we were to get involved and try and veto things or steer things in a different direction, that would probably be the wrong thing to do. So I think it's letting those guys make their own decisions and letting other hiring managers make their own decisions, and just kind of being there to support them than anything. And then on things like the AJ and KJT side, we get involved again, primarily because that's, to be honest, that's the more fun stuff. When you're talking to the likes of AJ and KJT and you're negotiating deals, and that's fun. I mean, there are other areas of business that aren't so fun, but if you could pick something you want to be involved in, it's speaking to the likes of those guys.
Yeah, I bet it was great.
And as you get bigger, you have a bit more of a luxury, to some degree, being able to pick what you get involved in. Obviously, when you start out, you've just got to accept that not everything you're going to have to do is going to be filling you with joy, but it is the process of starting and progressing a business. But yeah, the bigger you get, the more you can perhaps decide where you dip in and out in certain ways.
Yeah, no, it's really good to hear. Thanks for sharing, guys. Something I wanted to ask you about as well, because you started to talk a little bit more about the roles that you have within the business and what you're doing day to day. I noticed recently in the last sort of 2 or 3 months, both of your LinkedIn profiles changed from being the founder and managing directors to Adam, you being the founder and the CEO, and Elliot being the founder and the chief growth officer. So when did you guys decide that? How does that change what you're doing, if anything? And what does that conversation look like between the two of you when you do something like that?
It's something we talked about for probably around a year or so, and it's not something that's hugely been on our radar prior to that. I mean, we both work together very well. There's no huge reason driving the change other than trying to be more true to ourselves in what we both enjoy doing and are keen to progress for our own personal development. And to get the best out of both of us and give the best to the business. I mean, we've worked really well together as joint managing directors, for 15 years, and I'm sure could happily continue doing that. But it came to the point where we were both, because of our joint title, involved in every single conversation, every single decision, and that's not the best use of hopefully two good pieces of resource and ultimately the most responsible and influential people in the business. So splitting the role into two different areas where we can have slightly different areas of focus, in areas that we'd like to pursue and are keen to develop in more, felt like the best decision for the business overall to just ultimately continue progressing in the most significant way we can.
Yeah, it was. I think we talked about it in relation to kind of playing to our strengths, and I think we both are quite complementary in that we're probably stronger in slightly different areas. So my role is kind of, it still very much crosses over with what Adam does, because Adam will still get involved in these areas as well. But my role gives me a bit more kind of free rein to go and look at different areas for new products we might want to launch, new markets we might want to launch in, collaborations with different people, those kind of areas that I'm really passionate about and that are going to help us deliver the kind of next stage of growth for the business. So Adam will cross over into those areas too, but alongside that, Adam's very good at the kind of more structured elements of the business where I'm probably not so strong. So for us, it was about playing to our strengths and maybe not so much to our weaknesses. But I think Adam's right. We've complemented each other really well over the years. I think we feel the business probably reached a size where we need to maybe specialize a little bit more. It was a very grown up conversation and something we've been talking about informally for probably a year or so, and it was the right thing for the business. And ultimately, we are the shareholders, and we both want to do what is right for the business and is going to allow the business to succeed and become as big as it can be. And this was the right thing for the business.
Amazing. Yeah, no, thanks again for sharing that. It's really fascinating to hear outside looking in why you make those decisions. And you both sound like you're very happy with where you go moving forward. Was there ever any egos in that conversation, or was it not like that?
No, I don't think it was like that at all. I think, if either of us had that motivation, then it would be pretty obvious. And it just, I think we've both had to share the same expectation of each other for the whole time we've been in business. And I think that a lot of business partnerships do fail. Not all, which is great, but a lot of business partnerships do fail. And I'm constantly hearing from friends who have started up with someone who then, a year down the line or even less, they part company. And I think it's because they either don't have the level of trust, don't have the level of the same drive and motivation and the same work ethic. But you have to trust each other. You have to believe that you're both in it for the greater good, not for yourself, but for what you're building together. And obviously everyone has their own personal ambitions, and you can't necessarily align on the same thing all the time, which we don't and don't have to, I don't think. But you have to have that common goal and that trust in each other that you want to do something for the right reason, not for a selfish reason. And ultimately, our reasons for doing things have got to be for the best of the business. And if they're not, then either we've got to figure out how we do better ourselves and make sure they are, or we should make a different decision. But that's always been the way we've tried to work. And I think you just have, like Ed said, a grown-up conversation, and we always have that with each other. And you don't agree on everything. I think we're very lucky that we do agree on most things. We have quite a similar view on what's good and the direction we should take things. But naturally, two people are never going to agree on absolutely everything. But you have compromise, and you come to the realization that you don't have to have it your way on absolutely everything. And working together is exactly that. You work with someone else, and sometimes bouncing ideas off someone else is actually incredibly useful. I think if either of us were sat here just on our own, we would have found it a lot more difficult over the years, not having that close person to sort of discuss things with and try and come to the best conclusion, whatever that might be, good or bad. Two heads are better than one.
Yeah, I mean, the business wouldn't be where it is if we both weren't running it. If I'm sure Adam would admit, and I would freely admit, if it was just me, we wouldn't be approaching 100 million revenue. I don't know where we'd be, but we wouldn't be. So yeah, two heads are better than one, and especially when you're able to kind of, I mean, they always say that, you know, the power of a team is so much greater than 11 sort of individuals as such, in the football analogy. And I think it's similar for us, that, you know, together we are stronger than we are as individuals. And I think Adam was talking about how we agree on most things that we do, which is, you know, it's actually sometimes nice when we don't, because, you know, it enables a bit of debate and challenge, rather than sometimes just being a little bit complacent about some of the decisions we make. So we're certainly open to disagreeing. It just so happens that generally we do tend to agree on probably 99% of it.
Good thing is we brought in, obviously, a great senior management team around us, and they're all empowered and happy to challenge on things and often they have more experience than us and more expertise in their respective areas, and that's great, because the last thing we want to do is hire people where we feel like that our 15 years of, I guess, quite extensive experience, but in a very, very finite area, which is this brand. We don't want that to trump any of the skills around us. So we want people that, you know, can come in and bring new ideas to the table and challenge us on what we think is good and show us a better way of doing something.
Yeah, so important. What was the saying, that one of the biggest gifts in the world is to see something with a new perspective?
Yeah, definitely.
I want to be respectful of your time, guys. I really, really want to talk about the move to being more sustainable and everything you've done around there, and understand a bit more about what you've done, why you've done it, and what we can expect as well in the future.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability is something that all companies hopefully have on their radar, particularly in recent years. And I think depending on how important you feel it is, some businesses are more motivated than others to make that change. And as part of our rebrand, we always said it started with the name, but the project became so much more. And we didn't feel like we could relaunch the brand in a different way that was disruptive to the industry and really set us apart, unless we were addressing a key issue that not only were we passionate about, but we know that our demographic are incredibly passionate about, and rightly so. So we looked at all the ways that we could really make a difference, and we didn't want to come out with something. I mean, you see a lot of the big brands having like a 10-year plan, and they might have done 20% in year one and 50% by year 5 and things like that. And we thought, we can do better than this. We're a smaller business that has the ability to make a greater change and a greater impact in a much shorter period of time. So we wanted to come out with numbers that were sort of 90% plus on day one of telling anyone that we've done something. And that's what we achieved. So we decided that one of the biggest ways we can impact the future environmental negativity in the world is with our packaging and product design. And the biggest area around product design is the logistics and supply chain, and overwhelmingly your packaging. So we massively championed being plastic free, and we looked at all the different areas around recycled plastic and bioplastic, and we just felt like we didn't believe in any of them for various reasons, without going into the complexities. And we did try to become experts at this, but my God, is it a tough area to become an expert in, because there's no international standard or help that says, right, if you do packaging, you should not use plastic and you should use this instead, and it should be done in that way. It doesn't exist. You just have all these different opinions out there and bodies who say this is important, this is not, and you have to ultimately make your own decision and be content with why. But ours was, plastic is a bad thing. It's filling up the world's oceans. It's going into landfill. It takes 400 years if you're lucky to degrade, and it's killing wildlife and all the rest of it. So, you know, we've all seen on TV David Attenborough and all the importance around that. So we've ended up with over 90% of our packaging being plastic free from the relaunch of the brand, which is something we're really proud of. And that means that in 2021 alone, over 12 million pieces of single-use plastic won't be going into the world that otherwise would have done. And we've got a lot more work to do. This is not sort of a get that across the line, tick a box, and we're good for a few years. It's a constant journey. It's going to constantly evolve. And it was really tough. Suppliers and supply chain were not in the place we expected them to be, and were not able to deliver us easily what we wanted, because we also need the right quality. We're a brand that needs quality packaging, that's sustainable packaging, that has a great look and feel about it, that sits on your shelf and can stay there for a year and doesn't break or split or travel badly as a D2C business when it's shipped to you. So all these things were equally important, while also we had to have the right material and sustainability. So that was incredibly tough, and we didn't manage to get to the sort of perhaps 98, 99% ambition from day one. But 90% is pretty good. We're pleased with that, but we're not resting until we get to 100%. And we believe we will across this year, or very close to it anyway.
Amazing. Yeah, credit to you guys. It's absolutely incredible what you've done. So yeah, big congrats. Right, we did the same 3 questions at the end of every episode. Adam, are you all right for another 5? I know you've got a call technically now.
Go for it. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first one is from both of you, quick fire. Anything you've come across or discovered recently you're particularly excited about? And however you want to interpret that question. Anything you've come across or discovered recently you're excited about?
That's an incredibly difficult question. Trying to think. Adam must have something.
It could be anything: a workout, a book, a TV show.
I've been watching Succession on Sky, and I think it's a good series. I'd recommend it to anyone because it's got that kind of business element as well. So it's drama and business. So for me, that's been what I've been spending my evenings watching.
What's it called? Succession.
Succession, yeah.
Okay, all right, great, nice. I'll have to look at that one.
God, that really is a tough question. I guess something that I think is exciting is I like following how the sort of the world's best known entrepreneurs are pivoting their skills into space travel. So you've got both Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they've both been in the press recently when they had various different launches and testings. I think it just shows how when you get to a certain point in entrepreneurship, anything is possible. I mean, they both started out doing nothing like this, especially Jeff Bezos. He's a retailer. Okay, he's a very big one. But to go into space travel and to be talking about going to Mars and revolutionizing something that even NASA haven't done in terms of Elon Musk, yeah, I think that's incredible. So I like following their stories and seeing what they're doing. I think that's exciting.
Yeah, all right, I love that. That's a brilliant one. Cheers, guys. Second one of these is, if you had to give every listener one habit or practice to incorporate into their day that's going to help them perform better, what would it be?
Do you want to go first, Adam?
I can think of a few. One thing: have time for yourself. If you I think work-life balance, I don't entirely believe is possible when you're starting a business. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk is someone who's always been very vocal on this and said that it doesn't exist. It's just about choices. And I think he's right. It is about choices. You choose where you want to spend your time and what you're passionate about. But I think if you spend every waking hour in front of a laptop working on something, you lose a bit of yourself and a bit of like, what are you doing it for? Are you working to work? And you're working, it's not like work, it's passion, and you're doing it because you love it. But you do need to have a balance in life to some degree. And even if that's just taking an hour a day to read a book, to chat with a friend, to go for a walk, to hopefully it's to do something like go to the gym or do some exercise. Not obviously right now in the gym, but exercise nonetheless because of all the benefits around that. But I think having a little bit of time for yourself is important each day.
Brilliant.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was just touched on it, but I was going to say exercise. I think we're an active nutrition brand, so it'd be kind of remiss not to mention it. But yeah, just something every day, even if it's only, a walk for 20 minutes, just something that enables you to clear your mind. And for me personally, when I'm exercising, it's when I probably come up with some of my better ideas. Probably don't have too many, but if I am going to come up with a decent idea, it's probably more likely to be when I'm exercising.
Love it. Cheers, mate. That's awesome. And then the last one is, if you guys had to narrow it down to one trait within you that's allowed you to reach the level of success you're at, what would that one trait be?
For me, I'd say I'm just very, very competitive. I always have been, just from a very, very early age. Whether that is a genetic trait, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure there's probably a bit of kind of genetics and environment, but yeah, I've always been around sport from a very early age and have been incredibly competitive, and I carry that through to everything from business to board games to just, I can make anything competitive. So yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I'd say similar, relentless drive to just keep making things happen. Sorry, just a never-ending drive to achieve.
Awesome.
And learn, because they're actually one and the same thing. The more you achieve, the more you're learning. The more you learn, the more you can achieve. So just a constant drive and passion for that.
It's brilliant. Yeah, the motivation to grow, and then that feels nice. You want to do it again.
Definitely.
Guys, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's so impressive, everything that you've done and achieved, and over your 15 years and everything you're going to achieve. Good luck with 100 million. Very excited to follow the future of Bulk, and yeah, thanks again, guys. Anything you want to leave us with?
No, just a thank you to you, Mark. Obviously enjoyed talking to you, and we're fans of the podcast, and congratulations on 100 episodes as well.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Yeah, likewise. No, really appreciate you inviting us on, and it's been great chatting with you, and great being able to do this as something a little bit different, to break up a very standard, if you like, working day, a standard lockdown life. So yeah, it's really nice to be able to do something like this. So thank you, and congratulations as well.
Oh, cheers, guys. Yeah, I mean, look, we'll stay in touch. When we can open back up again, we do some great live events where we get listeners to come and meet the guests face to face and hear in a more intimate setting, and loads of other stuff that we do. So I'd love to stay in touch with you both.
Yeah, we'd love to be part of that.
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right, guys. Good luck with everything, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Bye.